Hello Warhammers. I just had to make this video because my little note list here, all scribbled up that I'm barely going to be able to read, is getting so old that it won't be relevant anymore if I just don't do it now. So I'm going to go off with this just the way it is. All right, first thing I want to talk about in Warhammer is painting. And a shout out to Tabletop Minions. Just get the team on the table with some paint on it. And I used to be like a big triple prime guy. I would maybe paint the figure black completely, and then I'd put another layer of primer. Let's say it was a mostly skin-covered guy with wearing leather. I would 45 degrees from the bottom, use like a brown primer, and then 45 degrees from the top, I would use like a skin-colored primer. And that works good, but what I don't like about that anymore is you're using 3 thick layers of paint. So primer is thicker, it has to be. On the molecular level, it has to be kind of rough in order to give the paint teeth, as artists say. So I'm doing now a black prime or a dark gray prime, or whatever color you want to use. For some terrain, maybe I'd use green, a dark green or whatever. But whatever my darkest color is that I want to use, it's usually black because I want the shadows to be black. A primer, okay? And I want it to cover the model completely. So that's why I like little pill bottles. This is not a pill bottle, but it'll give you an idea. I like little pill bottles with sticky tack or blue tack, as they call it in the UK, on the top, and then I can get up and underneath it, right? Get up and underneath it with my airbrush. And I'm not going to be like the other channels and tell you not to get it, that you don't have to do this with an airbrush, even though they always do. I just don't like... I like the way spray paint looks, especially the transitions where it fades from one to another. I just like the way that looks. So I would say get an airbrush. You can get an airbrush really super cheap, single action airbrush like I use, and maybe a can of compressed air or whatever to power it. Something that you can fill with a compressor or whatever for like $10, $20, right? So just do that. And I used a lot of my cheap single action airbrushes to teach young people how to paint. So they didn't last very long until I bought like a posh good one. And that one's lasted years. But it doesn't matter if you're just doing this to prime your individual models. And then what I do is I do a zenithal, but I mix up the colors of paint that I want. So I'm going to use Army Painter for an example. Let me see here. Let's say that I want to paint something gray, right? I'm going to take something kind of on the upper end, or probably something in the middle of the color, and then something on the bottom of the color in their color triad. So something kind of medium in tone and something kind of light in tone. And I'm going to use those for my zenithal. And I'm going to mix that paint, unless it's speed paint or something like that, then I might want to mix it 75% paint, 25% water. But pretty much all other paints, including airbrush paint, I would probably mix 75-25 with water, or just use thinner. Yeah, I definitely don't use any water with iridescent paints, like Viejo or Green Stuff World. I don't, with their 2-color iridescent paints, I don't use any water. But for most part, almost all paints, I use 50% water, 50% paint. And then I add 5% thinner, and I add 2.5% flow improver, like I've talked about in a lot of videos. And I'll do that darker color, 45 degrees up from the bottom, And I'll do that and go all around it 45 degrees from the bottom, holding it on that pill bottle, or it's harder with one of those long paddles, right? And then I'll use the lightest color, 45 degrees from the top, or white, okay? Usually a color that goes along with what I'm painting down here works out better. That's why I love my Army Painter War Paints Fanatic set. I got the 216 set. It's great because I can find a couple colors like that that are going to go together really well. And I'm actually very happy with those models just the way they are. And then if I want to slap a few colors extra on there, I want to make the teeth white, I want to make the weapons silver or whatever, and I want to paint the cloaks with a little bit of matte media in them so that they're flat colored, because that's the way clothing looks. Clothing looks flat. Then I can do that, and it'll just make the model all that better. And then my big cheat is I spray it all with iridescent, like Viejo. Can't think of the name of them. Color shift paints, I think they're called. And the green stuff world is called the shifters. So I think, hopefully I got the names right, otherwise this video will be banned. All right, proxying. Okay, so a shout out to Lords of War Games and Hobbies. They made me realize, and I absolutely love that channel because they talk as owners of a hobby store. So they're great. And they just sit down and just talk. And the best part about them is there's two of them. So you're not just getting my ideas, but you're getting my buddy's ideas about it too, who is actually his partner in business, you know, and the way that, oh, well, I disagree with that. You know, this is what I think. That part of interaction is great. So watch them. They said nobody really cares if you proxy models. They said maybe possibly if you go to a tournament, you know, and it's handled by Warhammer, maybe they might kind of want you to use their models. And he said that, like, really the idea is that it kind of represents the model to some degree. But he's seen, like, you know, pieces of paper attached to a base, you know, that said Chaos Dragon or whatever on it, right? And like, as long as everybody's okay with that, and probably most people are going to be, that's okay. So what I've started to do is think of ways that I can proxy armies. Now, eventually I'd probably like to get that that actual model from Games Workshop, because I feel like they make the best models. Okay, and there's another channel out there too that agrees with me that, and they even make their own models, and they feel like even though their models are kind of on the level of Games Workshop, that really Games Workshop makes the best models, and I would agree with that. What I did for my Chaos Dragon is I bought a $10 toy, and then just mixed up 50-50 some Ebier black flash iridescent paint, 50-50 with water, and then put in some thinner and flow improver like I described before, painted over the edge of it, and it made it look really cool, you know. And so I have this $10 toy that I'm using for a Chaos Dragon, and he's kind of rubbery or whatever, not too bad, but kind of rubbery. And actually my little mounted figure, my metal little mounted figure, fits really nicely on him. And he hasn't taken the paint off or anything. I think he's just going to work out great. And I mounted him to a rectangular base, the size that it recommended in the Army list, and everything's great. And I kind of propped him up on a rock with his front legs so that he would look more like he's kind of standing a little bit, not a wyvern, not to that level, but a little bit like the Games Workshop model. And a word of caution too, I don't think it's worth it. Like if you spend third or half of the price of the Games Workshop model to proxy it, I don't think it's worth it. Just go ahead and buy the Games Workshop model, save your money, and buy it the next month or whatever you have to do. It's definitely not worth it, because you can think of that Games Workshop model as an investment. You'll always be able to sell it down the road if you want to. You could probably even sell it for more if you're a good painter. So I'm going to have my Chaos Lord is going to be mounted. He's metal. And he's going to be mounted on a demonic steed, as I made a video of. And then if I go to a place where they allow me to proxy them, then I'll put them on my Chaos Dragon, and that'll be great. And I've also pulled out a whole bunch of models from my other games, from D&D, Temple of Elemental Evil, and Arena of the Planeswalkers, Magic the Gathering, and The Witcher. I bought the deluxe set that had all the models in it, and these are going to be great. And what it's going to do is, unlike what I told my wife a little while ago, and I'm always changing what I'm doing in Warhammer, I'll just tell you that right now. So this is kind of like for my benefit for the most part, just to see where I was at that particular time in my life. I told my wife, yeah, I discovered Warhammer in 2006 when we visited Wales. And I think I talked about that in a video. And it's only taken me 20 years to actually get an army on the table and start playing. This way, it'll be 18, because I'm going to actually get an army on the table in the next few days, because I'm just going to slap some paint on any models that are not painted that I described from before, and make an army doing the best I can to proxy. And I'm not going to worry about that they're the best models in the army list or anything. I'm not going to worry about it. If I just have 500 points or 1,000 points where I can play it against another 500-point army or 1,000-point army, at least I can start learning the rules, because it looks like the rules in Warhammer is going to be a really difficult thing for me, because there's a lot of them. Anything else on proxying? The proxies that I have for Arena of the Planeswalkers, I think they're 25 millimeters, so they're a little bit small, but I wouldn't mind cutting those up and kit bashing them either, you know, to make them a little better. Or another trick is just to kind of stand them up with sticky tack or whatever, stand them up on a base so that they're actually up a little bit higher and they actually have the illusion of looking a little bit taller. And I'll let you know how that goes, how easy they are to glue that type of flexible plastic to the polystyrene or whatever the Warhammer models are made out of. So I'll let you know how those paint, because back when I painted a lot of those, I was using oils, and now I'm using acrylics, of course, with my prime and my zenithal paint. Okay, boarding. Oh, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry about that. 40K 3rd edition. I want to give a shout out to the Red Ones Go Fasta, and a great video where he talked about what was his favorite edition of 40K, and he came up with 3rd edition. And the reason he came up with 3rd edition, definitely watch the video, don't just listen to me, but the reason he came up with 3rd edition is because the codices, other than Tau, and I picked up that Tau Codex for $10 or something like that. Other than Tau, because that was released later, the army lists and the points and the stats and everything are right in the rule book for 3rd edition. But then I also started collecting some old, and I'll make a video of these old editions of the game. I looked at 4th edition, and I loved the lore. It was kind of enhanced. And another big reason for me to want to play 4th edition is because I have the Apocalypse book, There may be a later version of it too, maybe 5th edition or not. I'm going to have to look into that. But the reason I want to play 4th edition is because of Apocalypse, but especially because of Cities of Death. So I have the Sanctum Imperialis. Yeah, I have that. And then I also have Sector Imperialis, I think it's called, from 2011, terrain that I haven't built and painted yet. But I'm really looking forward to using that terrain as my Cities of Death. And I also want to give a shout out to Glass Half Dead. He said that when you're using terrain, there's some armies that can't make it up to like a 3rd floor or whatever. So I'm going to build all my terrain with just having a maximum of 2 floors, and that'll make it a little bit more fair for the different armies. So what the Red Ones Go Fasta said is that 40K 3rd edition, and it's a softcover book, so it's not very expensive, is like 1-page rules that actually Warhammer created. And I was like, oh, well, none of my modern armies are going to be in that book or anything. But from looking through it, and maybe I'll make a video where we look through it together, I didn't really have that feeling. I felt like most of the stuff was there. I mean, the models in 3rd edition sometimes look different, you know. Sometimes they don't. So I think this will be a good thing. And the sell to my wife to getting these old versions of the books, and I just shop around until I find them for a decent price. The sell to my wife is that I won't have to buy the 10th edition codices. And I was looking at buying 4 of them. And yeah, I can get them for maybe $51, maybe $9 off. They're $60 regularly. But 51 times 4, you know, that's a lot of money. So not having to buy those for 10th edition, and I'm just not sure, especially the way the game plays, where whoever gets the first turn has a big, huge advantage. I'm not sure I'm going to like 10th edition that much. And then if I want to play 10th edition, having learned 3rd edition or 4th edition and some of these easier versions of the game will actually help me to just figure out what's different than 10th edition if I eventually want to play that. And then I could pick up the codices later on when they're cheaper too, so that would be nice. Boarding actions. Okay, I picked up that book. That's going to be a great way for me to play small little armies, because I have like kill teams, small little armies that I don't really feel like expanding out into something that can play 40K. So boarding actions will give me the ability to do that. It'll be kind of narrative or open play kind of thing. So I won't really worry about if they're balanced. I won't really worry about if they have stats in there. I'll just maybe proxy them and use the stats for another one that's in there, or do whatever I want, right? Spearhead, I've been hearing a lot of good things about Spearhead, except for Glass Half Dead, and he says that it's for beginners. Well, I'm a beginner, so that might not be a problem for me, right? But I love that channel. I especially love the way he collects terrain, because I collect terrain. I want to talk about how much better of a hobby that Warhammer is than MTG. And I made a video about this before. I mean, instead of just being a card game, it's got the miniatures, it's got cards, it's got dice, it's got terrain, it's got a board, you know, cool boards, or you can make your own board. It's just, there's a lot more to it, a lot more fun. And I, of course, feel like Games Workshop is far less evil than Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro, even though I'm invested in them and gone down in valuation. Um, I want to give a huge shout out to Juan Hidalgo. Um, Excellent painter, really, really good Golden Demon level painting. Really, really excellent painter. And he just made a video that changed my life. And it was a simple thing of getting these little tools. He didn't know what the rubber is called. It's called silicone. Silicone rubber on the end of a tube. And I like the ones that are kind of spade shaped. But leave off this finger, like just those 3 fingers or whatever. And then it kind of goes out like that, kind of spade shaped like that. Those things are great because I can wipe off the green stuff or the milliput or the Viejo. I can't reach my Viejo right now, it's behind me. Viejo plastic putty or whatever, the white stuff in a bottle. I can just wipe it off from where I don't want it, and I can kind of force it down in there with it, and I can make it completely smooth on the seam, and I'm just really, really loving that trick. I always tried to do it before with something hard, but I've also got the metal tools he recommended too, so I'm going to be teaching myself how to use those as well. There's some great channels on there for doing your own modeling and everything. It was a man's name, so I'm sorry I don't have that name right now to give him a shout out. But he uses, Juan doesn't use green stuff, he uses milliput and something else. This guy uses a combination of milliput and green stuff, so that the best properties of each are, the green stuff is a little bit more hard to work and more springy, and then the milliput's a little softer. He uses a combination of those to do excellent modeling. Now I want to get into that. One of the things that I want to make right off the bat, because it's so expensive to buy, is a doom diver for my orc and goblin army, because it's just a matter of like some squared off logs, right? Some logs that are made square is what makes it up. So I can easily make those just by cutting the green stuff or whatever into rectangular prisms, like you think of a square that's just stretched out, right? And I can create that just by looking at pictures on the internet of what the Doom Diver model looks like for like way over $100. So I'll make myself one, and then I have these core wings. They're kind of fancy for goblins, but I think they're cool. And they will fit. They're already painted and everything. They'll fit right on the back of a goblin. All I have to do is cut a little square hole in their back, and then these wings can go on for my Doom Divers. And I want to talk about spray cans. I am so glad I'm not using spray cans anymore. These things are miserable. Do not use these. They just, they're not reliable. They spatter and everything. I would say, some people say they're okay for, if you're going to cover the whole thing for terrain, because you can paint it faster than an airbrush. But in general, I don't recommend those. I've gotten good results. I've gotten really crappy results, and I've never gotten excellent results like I do with airbrush. So just buy yourself an airbrush, whatever price it needs to be, and I give my highest recommendation to that. A single action airbrush is super, super easy to clean. I can clean it literally in minutes. I think I've made a video on cleaning that thing. All right, 4th edition Age of Sigmar. I'm going to do the same thing as I'm doing with 40K. I'm going to go back to 1st edition, and I've gotten the models that were unique built for Khorne, and then I have to build the models for the Stormcast. But if the models have like the same name and I can proxy them or whatever, what I've already got built from the 2nd edition, I'll probably just use those. Um, so I'm gonna start out playing first edition, then play some second edition. I already have those built, the Stormcast and the Night Haunt and all that stuff. And I'm just gonna play that. Oh, I also have orcs built, orcs and from the Dominion set, which I bought for under $100. It's great to find a sweet spot for those big kits to where you can get them for like less than $1 a model or whatever, you know, if you catch it at the exact right time. I'm waiting for that to happen with Leviathan and Scaventide. There's so many channels. I got all these channels written down for Old World. What's so great about Old World right now is that there's so much content on there. And there's people that talk about painting, of course. There's people that talk about army building. There's people that talk about rules. There's people that talk about the metagame. And it's so awesome. And what they always keep saying, especially Squarebase, shout out to Squarebase, is that it's really early in this game. This game is really new. So especially if I start proxying and start learning the game and playing it, I'm going to be in good shape, and then I can build my actual Games Workshop models later on, because I'm definitely trying to pick up those kits that have the battalions in them, because they're a good price, right? I've seen the Dwarf Army down to $120. I've seen Orcs and Goblins down to $120. Battalion seems to, or Bretonia seems to remain expensive. I've seen that huge box for, but I haven't seen it lately, for Tomb Kings for like 169 or whatever. I should have bought that, or 160 or something crazy, you know. I should have just bought those for the extra books alone to give to somebody, right? Since I already have them. I think that probably there won't be anything like that in the future, so I would say do them now. A lot of people are saying also, like, if there's armies that are legacy are not going to be supported in Warhammer right now, they probably will be supported later on, so pick them up now while they're cheap. I'm building a Vampire Counts army, but that's not really probably ever going to be cheap because it does well in Age of Sigmar and stuff. Just so many channels. I'd like to mention them all, but I'm probably going to struggle to read all the ones that I've written down. I'll probably put them into, I use this little journal program on the iPhone. I'll probably try to type all these in and then try to listen for another week or so for any ones that I have missed on here. I think the guy's name was Stuart that does the modeling and stuff like that. Excellent channel. So I want to get him added on there. One thing that I'm kind of disappointed about is the size difference between AOS and Warhammer Old World. But I'm going to see if I can kind of work with that, trying to make that work, use different tricks. I read in some rules that there really isn't a maximum base size, although it's a disadvantage if it's like a template that's hitting you. It's a disadvantage to have a bigger base, but there's not really a limitation on the size of the base other than it can't be smaller, because that gives your opponent disadvantage. And maybe it would look okay to have like some larger Age of Sigmar models kind of in the middle, interspaced with some smaller guys, and maybe that would look okay. But it's really kind of disappointing that Age of Sigmar had to make the models so much bigger now. but then again, they're much cooler. They can put more detail and you can paint them better. Sorry for the pause. I was trying to read the next line, which I should know not to do when I'm making a video. The metagame. It seems to me like the metagame is changing. Like at first they said like, you know, it was all about vampire counts and like if they'll let you play that, that's going to be great. And then later on it was about dragons, and it was about Linehammer and all this stuff. And now it's about Britonia and the Pegasus Knights or Peg Knights. Sometimes they use abbreviations for things. I don't know what they mean. Everybody was saying BSB, BSB, and I didn't know what that meant. And I was asking Alexis what it meant. And she would always agree with me what I thought it was, you know. And then I finally figured out BSB is Battle Standard Bearer. You know, everybody was talking about their BSB, and I had no idea what that meant. So be careful, guys, when you make videos about using abbreviations, because not everybody might know what you mean on that. Kill Team, I haven't really considered getting the new Kill Team set. I love the terrain. I like the armies and everything, but I just don't want to branch into another expensive set for Kill Team. And I happen to have like all the Kill Team books, and I was really especially interested in the terrain from Kill Team, so I picked that up wherever I could if it was good. And I'm going to play through those, but I don't know that I'm going to like always be chasing the new thing. I think they come out too fast. WarCry, I really didn't buy anything Gur. I don't know, it just didn't really turn me on. So I bought the Crypt of Blood because I like the terrain, and I like the armies. Although that would never work as terrain on its own, in my opinion. But I also have like the little graveyard set or whatever. It's gone by a couple different names. I have that set too, so with those two together, it'd be really good. I haven't gotten into one-page rules yet, but I could see that coming in my future, albeit I'm going to do the Warhammer version of one-page rules. Sorry, I keep looking over at my bookshelf over there. And I'll make videos with those different books and stuff. Once I receive the ones from eBay that I ordered, I'll make videos on all those books. And something I mentioned before too, I just don't really like how 3D printed models look. And I kind of alluded to this, that Games Workshop models were the best or whatever. Yeah, I'm probably not going to be happy with 3D printed models. I've gotten some terrain that's been really, really good, but as far as the models themselves, I'm just really not liking it that much. And they have no value. I mean, you know, it's going to be hard to resell them because they're not Warhammer models. And I've gotten ones that were sticky, or ones that, like, when I set them down on a metal plate, like there was oil on the bottom of the thing and everything. So I don't think those things are always cured right and everything too. So, and I find them to be really expensive for what they are. You know, I mean, even the STLs I feel like are expensive. So I don't know, you know, with this one-page rules, if I'd want to do their Army Forge or whatever it's called, for their models that they have the STLs for. I just find them to be expensive, inconvenient, and they have to wait, and you have to try to find somebody you can work with, you know, that'll give you good service. I have a lot of 3D printed stuff that I add to my bases and everything. I've been pretty happy with that. But then again, there's probably just one or two companies that I work with, and I've gotten good stuff from them, and they've always discount my stuff when I order more than one set. So I'm kind of liking that, just to add to my bases. We'll see how that stands up in the future. Oh yeah, Army Forge is what's OPR Army Forge. I find that stuff to be expensive. And I don't really like anything. Tell me how you feel in the comments, but I just don't like anything that is a subscription that you have to pay for month by month by month. So to me, even $5 a month, which is kind of, I think, the minimum on OPR, $5 a month just seems like a lot of money to me to keep going with that. I'd rather support a content creator in Patreon than do that, I think. I think that's about it. I think I've covered everything that's kind of was on my mind when I created this list a few days ago. So I'm glad I made the video. I also wrote a song, so I'll be putting that up. It's for Britonia. The working title is Britonia Battle Song. So I'll put that up. I want to wait for my arcane journal for Britonia to come so that I can read up on the lore and just know a little bit more to try and make the lyrics a little bit better. I want to work on the chords and put in some kind of an outro. I think that's about it. So thanks for bearing with me, my ramble. Especially thanks to all the YouTube creators out there that have just entertained me so much watching their stuff. I do a lot more watching other people's stuff than I do making my own. Thank you, Warhammers. Have a good night.